Welcome to all of you. We're delighted that so many were able to come out in such crappy weather and learn more about what's going on with Traverse City Light and Power, because they are setting the stage for good things ahead. Before I introduce the speaker, I'd like to introduce to you, if you haven't met him, our new NMEAC chair, who thought he wasn't going to be able to make it tonight, but showed up at the last minute. So Blaise Masseron is our new chair, and I don't know if you'd like to say a couple words.
Sure. Everybody, hi, thanks for coming. You may adjust this a little bit. This will be better. So yeah, my name is Blaise. I'm the new chair of NMEAC, and we're in for a treat tonight. Thank you so much, Brandie, for being here. TCL&P is doing some awesome things. Really big thanks to June. She really spearheaded this event and has been kind of our major liaison between NMEAC and TCL&P. TCL&P is working on, Brandie will get into the detail here, but we've been working on a climate action plan. They've had 2 public open houses in the fall, and I think 2 more to come this spring. They're also doing some focus groups. So there's a chance to potentially get involved with those focus groups and to show up to these public, these open houses. They've had them at the library. I think they'll probably continue to do so. But yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity to get involved and to learn more. And I'm still learning a lot, and I'm excited about what's happening. So yeah, thank you for being here. And without further ado, I'll turn it over.
Thank you, Blaine. This morning, many of us were delighted to watch a League of Women Voters program on the climate that Peter Sinclair has been keeping track of for eons and eons. And it is getting to the point where it's desperate. It's at the point where we need to make rapid changes. 2050 is too far away. And the person leading in Traverse City, which we're delighted to have, I feel fortunate to live in the city where our Light and Power administrator, it cares about the climate and is actively doing things about it. So this is a chance for you to meet her if you haven't, and for you to ask questions at the end if you're whatever it is you didn't hear about, and also to get acquainted with each other, because we are all in this same boat. And I'm delighted to see some of the young people here who I haven't seen. We're not handing them a very wonderful climate, very wonderful world. There's a lot of work to do, and we're kind of all in this together. So thank you for coming. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Brandie Ekren, who is our Light and Power administrator. I watched some of the times in last fall when they were looking for a new administrator, and the board is in sync with what she is doing and what's going on here. And she is really going to set an example for all the other townships and places around as far as pushing Traverse City to a new paradigm. So I'm going to let her talk to you about it, tell you what she's doing, and then we'll have questions and answers or Q&A at the end, and you'll get a chance to talk to her yourselves. Thank you. Brandie, take over.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Blaise. And thank you, all of you, for having me here to visit this evening. Beautiful weather, finally. got some snow. I did put together a brief PowerPoint presentation so you can kind of have a little bit of a visual, but I'm also going to show you some different additional resources too that we're kind of growing and kind of putting together. As Ann mentioned, I'm the Executive Director for Traverse City Light and Power. I've been here since last March. It's hard to believe that I'll be approaching a year relatively soon. And it has been kind of an exciting journey. It kind of started with, quite frankly, the utility already teed up to want to pursue and move in a particular direction that was in personal and passionate alignment with my own. And so what I want to talk with you a little bit about today is some of that planning process, and we'll kind of go through the goals of where we want to go and where we're hoping to end up, and then how you can kind of continue to be involved. Before we kind of dive in, this is my little mini outline for what I'd like, my goals for my visit is, I bulleted them out into 4 key areas. One, I want to let you know what we're seeking to accomplish. I want to talk heavily about the stakeholder engagement process, because really that's the most valuable asset to all of this, is really where public power and municipal power really gets its value. And I got a couple group thoughts. I'd like to get some conversation from you, hopefully, and then we'll definitely have some questions and answers. But before we kind of dive into our why, I want to ask you a question. Do you often question and are curious about why does the electric industry care so much about climate? Is that something that is often on your mind? Anyone got a good reason or thought why they think we care? And I say care, and I say we, I'm talking about my co-op brothers and sisters, my investor-owned brothers and sisters, as well as my municipals.
Because you care about the world.
That's one thing, absolutely. Yeah, and what I'm going to share with you today, quite frankly, is not too far off from a number of other utilities. They may not have maybe the resources, and may not be making the same strides, but I can say with confidence, it is a general feeling, I think, across the industry to make an impact, and there's a role and an opportunity for that. And so I'm going to talk with you about Traverse City Light and Power in particular, but I will tell you, I don't really think it's rocket science on what I'm sharing. I don't think, but you get a sense of kind of what we're doing. So for us at TCL&P, one of our big whys is, one, we have acknowledged that we do believe climate change is real. We haven't hid behind it. As a matter of fact, I think some of us believe that it's a little bit beyond just changing. But it's something that we definitely have embraced. The other big component is that there's a consistency, I think, amongst my leadership, amongst my board, as well as my staff, is that they want to leave a legacy. I attended an event years ago and someone asked me why I was doing energy planning in general, and I said because I really care about my kids and what my family is doing, and I don't think I'm unlike most that are in a job either exactly like mine or very close to mine. The other big piece is that integrated resource planning, and that's really what we're doing. We're calling it a climate action plan, and I'll talk about the distinctions, but I say sometimes that's basically where it all begins. Or not really all begins, that's how it happens. We set very big, ambitious goals, we say we want to accomplish it, and we've got all of these things going on in the industry with respects to electrification, solar, behaviors. It is the buzz right now. To some extent, maybe there's a little bit of greenwashing, but it's the buzz. Integrated resource plan puts it into a nice way so that you can see how you're going to achieve those goals and have some type of visibility and transparency with it. How do you get where you want to get? And so we're still doing that. And so a traditional IRP is something that investor-owned utilities definitely have to do before they kind of implement something for their rate base. The Michigan Public Service Commission approves it. For municipal utilities, we use it a little differently. One, it's not necessarily mandatory for us to do, but is a great exercise and tool. And it usually leads into our strategic planning. And so we utilize it as a resource tool. It doesn't have to be approved by the Michigan Public Service Commission, but it's an excellent opportunity to kind of embrace what's going on in the environment, the regulatory environment, what customer needs are. It's a good way to really be able to see that. So the municipal world has kind of identified and kind of adopted that as well. Some key things just to kind of keep in mind with a traditional IRP, it takes a 20-year look so to speak. It doesn't mean, with some ability to plan some goals that are within a shorter period of time. The other piece is it takes into account what affordability is, what are the risks, what are the constraints for being able to accomplish those big goals, what does environmental stewardship look like, and then at the end, you pretty much set, this is going to be my portfolio mix. This is how I'm going to provide the energy that I need to provide. For us, our climate action plan, at least for our utility, because many communities do climate action plan. I don't think that's anything necessarily new. But for us, what we're doing is that we're still incorporating that basics of the integrated resource planning, but we want to spend a little bit more time diving in with our consultants to push the envelope a little bit. The end product is usually that portfolio mix. We also want some recommendations for some programs. So if you're going to give me an idea of what the industry looks like for electrification, give me some advice on how to make that work. And so that's where we're kind of making the distinction there. And then we are also including some goals so that we can have some integrated programs. I think that's probably where we're different, at least that's what my consultant likes to say, is that I want to do program integration with what we're recommending. And then that will lead us towards doing our strategic plan, which is due for an update. So we'll go ahead and get our strategies and our priorities, that portfolio mixed on, and then we'll move into that more formal strategic planning process, which will give us an opportunity to revisit our strategic foundation. What does our mission, vision, and values look like? And then put together some strategy mapping. How are we going to strategically respond to what's going on in the industry, and based on how we kind of identify ourselves. And so I'm going to go through the solutions that we've mentioned that we're exploring. The first solution deals with energy efficiency. And for one of the key things, and some of you may be familiar with the rebate program. We often call it energy waste reduction, but in essence, it's an opportunity. The real value of energy efficiency is to enable the effectiveness of renewables. That's really why we're doing it. That's the reason why it matters. So traditional IRP modeling still does take into account energy efficiency programs, but there's an opportunity here for us to look at how can we enable energy efficiency? How can we increase our programs in terms of increasing our rebates? We're looking at that right now, and that's something that I'm really excited about that we're working on. The next piece, and I'm going to say beneficial electrification. You may hear it as just electrification in general, but in the industry, there really is a strategy behind it. The reason why it's called strategic or beneficial electrification, and you've probably heard this, is that ideally, if we can eliminate unnecessary gas sources or carbon emitting sources such as heating, cooling, and transportation by electrifying the end user, we're economizing, so to speak. It doesn't mean that the electric industry stops with its goals, because a lot of those items are still fed by coal and natural gas. But this strategy allows us to target what the biggest offender is for climate change, and then also be able to start still working on our portfolio. Distributed energy resources, basically customers or just having renewables placed across our footprint. It's an excellent opportunity for us maybe to look at how we're encouraging that, how can we utilize that. Right now the utility is what I like to call a distributed integrator and interconnector. And what that means is that we wait for our customer to come to us, whether or not they've developed something, and say, hey, I've built this solar array, I want to integrate into your system, I want to get on your net metering program. How does that work? It's very reactive. It's not very proactive. It's not planned. The trend is somewhere in between being what's called a distributed energy platform or optimizer. Those are some cool things that are going on right now. And the beauty about that is it allows utilities to look at their distribution system, look at their energy needs, and proactively approach customers with the placement of the renewables and figure out what does that partnership look like so that it's less responsive and a little bit more proactive. Those are some of the things that we want to model and take a look at. Where we end and how fast we get there will still determine. But that really is the future. Those are the types of things that we're looking at, and it's exciting, quite honestly. As a matter of fact, during our process, we've already been starting to kind of get an inventory of, I would say, large industrial customers who are interested in making an investment. And so that's been kind of exciting. I can't keep up with it, quite honestly. Actually, it's kind of a heartache to some extent because they're ready to go. They want to know what they need to do. And so we're collecting this information, and it's good, because perhaps maybe we have an opportunity to help them with procurement at a larger scale, and it makes a little bit of a savings. So we're going to continue to collect that information, but we've been collecting that through the stakeholder engagement process. Energy storage, how often do you hear people say, well, battery technology isn't there yet, so we might need to pause? Well, perhaps we need to start demonstrating what battery technology looks like. My personal favorite is being able to pair battery technology with any renewable. I think you see the city right now is kind of exploring a grant opportunity where they want to do a renewable demonstration, and they want to do a demonstration that includes solar. It definitely increases the price, but the idea is that if you want to get the real value of the renewable, pair it with some solar. Let that be the trend. Let that be what we explore. And our modeling will talk about what does the market penetration look like for that, what's the feasibility, and how does that encourage and impact our renewable goals. We're also, one of the things, TCL&P is a member of MPPA, which is our joint action agency. They help us procure power in these projects that we're invested in. They actually have presented already a storage demonstration, storage project that we can invest in. To some extent, it's really small, but it's a step forward. And so we're quite excited about being able to maybe invest in that. So demand response. Demand response is a program, quite honestly, where we leverage the connectivity of us all and the technology to shave how much energy we're using. That's kind of the design, the focus, and the approach behind that. So we are modeling that. Now, whether or not our community is ready for demand response, we'll approach that. I think one of the things that I'm getting feedback on is that we probably need to do more education on it. And so if that's the goal, that's the goal. But it is one of the proven strategies that really helps with, if we want to put together that full package, you got to pair it up with demand response technologies as well. And then the last, while it may not necessarily be a technology solution, it is to what end in mind. And that is the decarbonization. So with all of the strategies and the solutions that I had kind of mentioned to you, ideally, we want to decarbonize. There are other emissions that are offending the planet right now, and we know that, but I think it's probably widely accepted that decarbonization is really our focus and our goal right now as a community. And all of the technologies that I've mentioned are really designed towards decarbonization. So we're factoring that strategy into our planning process to look a little bit at what that looks like. We like to, when we have a hard day at my office, my team often reminds me Rome wasn't built in a day. But that is the value of the to what end in mind, we're working on. That is really why we're doing what we're doing. It is really for decarbonization. It's because decarbonization is the best thing that we can do right now for our planet. There are a number of other programs and things with respect to energy efficiency that relate to energy waste reduction in terms of recycling, composting. All of those things fit in. One of my team members, she says, I want to make certain we're walking our walk. And so we're trying to spend some time, well, it may not be the big corporate exciting planning, but taking a look at what are some of our internal business practices that we probably should be doing. We should probably be recycling in a more sensible way. Maybe there's an opportunity to do some gardening. Actually, that's a good mental health piece for me. So, there's a holistic approach, and to some extent, it all factors in. It is definitely impacting planet health. Our stakeholder engagement process, which we kicked off, we started with 6 big goals. Those goals that are over to, what is that, your left right there, the process planning and transparency, industry insight, industry landscape, those are items that we've been able to kind of do from those open houses, those focus groups. That's really where we're touching a lot of those, providing some industry insight, and I'm going to show you our website in a minute so you can kind of see where we're trying to build that platform, but also better understanding what does the industry landscape look like and what does our public education need. On the right, where we talk about perspective and goal alignment, insight and feedback, and opportunity identification, that's where the interviews and being able to have those one-on-one conversations have been really instrumental. So I mentioned the renewables. That was really an opportunity identification. I've worked on a previous project in the previous life. I thought it was a very innovative project. It was one of those projects I wasn't looking to find, but it came out of the stakeholder engagement process. It was, hey, you're doing this, you're investing a bit and building a new facility. Well, I wonder if we can kind of leverage and do a microgrid demonstration. And that, quite honestly, those opportunities are springing up now. Do they have roots just yet? Not just yet, but I kind of envision we'll probably be doing a lot of feasibility studies in the next couple years to see how we can kind of get these projects off and going. I would not have found them but for the stakeholder engagement process. And there may be an opportunity for us maybe to continue something similar to that even after this planning cycle, so to speak, because I did get some really good bits of information. These are our tactics. So I mentioned those public open houses. Blaze mentioned that we've got a few more on the books, and I'm going to go through and let you know how those are actually going to be a little bit more focused they'll be additionally focused than the others. The segmented groups or the focus groups, we've had a number of those. We're considering whether or not to do another, but maybe in a little bit more of a virtual format to allow for flexibility for people to kind of engage and not have to worry about travel. The one-on-one meetings, we're kind of starting those with our business, commercial, industrial customers, and then opening it up for an opportunity if anyone wants to schedule time to be able to do that. I've got a list. People have reached out. We've got to do some scheduling, and so we'll be doing that soon. And then the other deals with the survey. So we did have a commercial and residential survey that Great Blue, I think it was Great Blue Research, administered for us over this past fall. And we completed that, and we're processing those results. Excellent report. Actually, we'll probably end up posting kind of the raw report as it is, because they did a great job of providing a good summary of the feedback. But then there's also on the website, and I'm going to share that with you, an opportunity for you to still put in some feedback there as well. And then we've got the public open house as well. So this is a timeline of those public open houses. Last night, we had a meeting at the library, and it was kind of a kickoff, I would say, of what I would consider the meat of what we're doing, that IRP, their Integrated Resource Plan. To some, it may seem a little boring, but it is quite exciting because it was an opportunity to explain what it goes into an IRP, how an IRP is utilized, what is an IRP, and we'll be having that available too. So that will be something that we did record it, and so that's something that'll be available on our website, as well as the slide deck. And so it was some really good information, some preliminary discussions a little bit with a couple members that attended. So we really liked it. And then the next opportunity in March will be an opportunity to kind of demonstrate and show how that IRP is progressing along, how that modeling is working. One of the reasons why we went with Five Lakes Energy for our consultant is because we like their IRP tool. It's a tool that's been utilized by the state of Michigan in setting that My Healthy Climate plan. But the key piece and why it was so attractive was because it was easy to understand. And it's a level of transparency. So, and if you need it to fluctuate and see how things are working, we could get it. And I am not a scientifically techie-minded person at all. And for me, it was most important because all of the other tools that we use across the industry are still really good tools. I mean, I use some amazing tools. They're high-powered. They give you exactly what you want. And this tool still does the same thing. The difference is that it's available. And as a matter of fact, I think when they designed the tool, they designed it so that members of the public could maybe play with it themselves at some point. So that's kind of the reason why we went with it, and you'll be able to kind of see it in action at least at the next open house. The open house that will occur in April, so kind of keeping in mind, we're trucking along, getting all this data to our consultants, we're doing research, they're giving us feedback, we're starting that IRP modeling. At some point, we're gonna have some preliminary recommendations of where we wanna go. However, before we finalize those strategies and I guess formally approve and present that to my board, I want to have an opportunity to do what might be called maybe like a public comment period, so to speak. So in a regulated industry, there's a public comment period on an IRP. I kind of wanted to do something a little similar to that, where we'll kick it off at the open house, and then for at least maybe about 30 to 20 days thereafter, people will have an opportunity to either provide some comments or even show up to a board meeting or so to offer some comments as well. And then once we get past that period, June is my goal. June is when I'd like to really formally get it approved by my board, or at least, and they're engaged. So I think Ann mentioned they are in very much alignment with the direction that we're moving in. They've been so supportive. As a matter of fact, sometimes I wonder if I'm sending them too much information, but they've been very engaged. And we're blessed because our board has a lot of industry experts on it to some extent. And so while they may not be pros at like utility operations, they're familiar with the industry. And so they've been really great partners and assets to kind of have as we've been moving along the process. Virus alert. Ooh, hold on. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I am actually going to come out of my PowerPoint because I want to show you our TCL&P Climate Action Plan website a little bit, okay? So TCLPcap.org, and it's in the slide deck as one of the links if you haven't gotten it. Or you'll see that as soon as you pull it up, it gives you an opportunity to sign up for information that's going on, our mailing list. You can't avoid it. Whether you signed up or not, it's going to always pop up and give you an opportunity to say, yes, sign me up again. But you go ahead and close that. And we still have our corporate website, which is tclp.org. This website we built for the purposes of our planning process. It gives you a lot of information. There's some pieces on it that we're still working on. We're still adding content. But I wanted to kind of highlight that because that really is a good resource for you. Which goes down to, if I talk about, in terms of our timeline, the solutions that we're exploring. So if you click either one of these, and I'm going to click electrification as a good example, it'll talk with you about what electrification is. So when we are talking about electrification, it's our first step in education. I think we have an opportunity to kind of embellish and improve upon that. But when we were talking about the solutions, it was really important to the team that people kind of knew what we were looking at in as plain language as possible, even though it is several paragraphs. There's some FAQs, glossary of terms. Before I get to how to get involved, there's the Media Center, where we're taking the opportunity to share some helpful links that we think are helpful, that we're coming across. Which talks, right now the hot topic is electrification. So we wanted to include some facts on that. The Inflationary Reduction Act, there's the act here, but also I believe last month there was a workbook that was also disseminated. And so that'd be something that'd be nice to also have on the website, which just kind of talks about how the grants will work, what makes sense. Again, this is just my thought would, let's just throw some information in here, let's start organizing it, and then we'll sort through where we kind of need some information points or need to improve. How to get involved, the stakeholder engagement. So you go here, and it's not unlike what I've already shared with you in terms of the strategies, the goals, and the events that's coming up. And then there's the give feedback. This actually links to something else. It links to the same thing. I'm just gonna go backwards here. So I'm gonna go back to the home. See, I told you, it always gives you an opportunity. So if you scroll down here, this is where I would say it gives you, again, it's the same information from those upper pieces, but it talks about, our stakeholder open houses. You could click here to attend or pre-register. You don't have to register. We do like to know. We like to keep track and see how many people are coming, because if we need to improve our communication or advertisement, it gives us an opportunity to do that. Join our mailing list, but I'm gonna click right here, which is the provide your feedback. And so this feedback form, now obviously we did the survey and you were able to complete the survey through a QR code. This is still an additional opportunity even though that survey period has closed out. This opportunity is really one to give you an opportunity really to comment on the strategies and the solutions that we're looking at, as well as to express some interest in an interview. And if you want to just pick the general other, you can always pick the general other and talk about what I'm going to ask you today about, and we'll go into 2 particular questions. So you could stick within that, or you can just do other, submit it, and then there is a team that receives that. We do have an email, and I believe it is TCL&P cap at tclp.org. I'm confident it's on this webpage. That's another opportunity to provide some feedback, questions, request some information. And so I've talked with you quite a bit about what we're doing. I feel like I maybe talked too fast. I had a whole bunch of information, but I wanted to at least maybe get some group discussion or comments on 2 major questions. One question is, what should TCL&P priorities be for the next 5 years? Our survey definitely included a lot of detail, it's very lengthy opportunity, but one of the things that we wanted to be able to do is really focus on what were 2 things that if we wanted to consistently get from a number of different people, what would we like for them to share? And this was one, what should our priorities be? And I'll give you the second, because that may actually factor into that. What considerations should we be mindful of during our planning process? So I'm going to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts?
I have an old gas hot water heater. I'd like to put in, I forget the name for it.
Induction.
I'd like to get the kind that feeds off the air or the groundwater, whatever. Can you give us a list at some point of people that can help with that?
Oh, okay.
Who can judge what the house needs, the size, and provide a place to buy it? I think maybe my son can install, but I don't know that either.
Okay.
So be able to kind of, and that actually is a theme we kind of heard from some of our focus groups. People, we were asking them, like, what could we do? Do you think about us in our energy planning? And one of the things, phrases we've been kind of coining is the solution. If we can be a solution center, to be able to be a resource, to be a conduit. And so that's definitely, I think, consistent with some of the feedback we've been hearing.
My concerns are that there is a real urgency to moving forward. So I'm hoping that some action will be taken in the next several months that will be a showcase for the public to realize that there are solutions and that they all need to get involved. I think that Traverse City Light and Power will be setting a real trend here, and especially with getting the publicity to show the townships what's going on, because so many of them are in denial.
Okay, so being mindful of the urgency, what can we do within the next couple months or so, and then seeing if we can maybe provide some collaboration opportunity with the townships. That's what I kind of heard. Yeah, okay.
Hi, my name is Linda Cobert. I'm a new member of the Traverse City Commission. And and I was one of the yes votes for electrification of buildings, along with Tim, who introduced it, who is one of your board members. I have a few questions, and that is, number one, it might be really great for you as TCL&P to put things in the inbox of commissioners to educate them on those things. We did get a comment from the fire chief that was interesting, saying, I'm all for this, but you have to have a backup system. And he had well-grounded reasons for that from his service point of view. I didn't have an answer for that. And one of my questions is, so there was resistance, there were only 2 yes votes, even though all the inbox mail was, yes, go for it, from people who appeared to be knowledgeable and well-connected. I understand that we would be a leader, a relative leader for this part of the country. You know, California, communities are voting for this, but we would be a bit of a leader. Would we be too much of a leader? Is the technology there for us to be able to actually require this now? And we wouldn't be requiring it of people's homes. It would just be government buildings and anything that receives a pilot, which is a tax relief for the building. Are we there? Is the technology there?
So for priorities, I will add to my note. One is providing some education and clarity on how to encourage electrification. When we get to I'm going to circle back and answer that. Yeah. Yeah, but my short answer is yes. We are. However, there are definitely some risks and constraints and things that we should be considering as we move forward. I don't think that's a reason not to move forward, but we do have to start somewhere.
I agree. So some more education to those in government would be helpful.
Yep, and then how to move us along. It may not necessarily, I think, happen right away, but I get the sentiment, at least since I've been here, and with my interaction and engagement with both my board as well as commission members, and you've probably maybe sensed that too. I think there's definitely that appetite for it.
Definitely an appetite,
Yes.
but are we moving too fast kind of things? Are we going out of order? That we need help to lift those people.
Yep, and I have been invited to maybe attend a meeting or so.
Excellent.
And
Because I think that was the takeaway.
Yeah.
We need more information.
Someone followed up quickly.
This is a little bit different. Am I right, volume? Okay. I live on the peninsula, and I'm serviced by consumers. And when consumers' power goes out, I look across the valley and see TCL&P still on. Well, but we've got consumers, TCL&P, and Cherryland, and probably a number of other suppliers around here. And as you look around our highways and roads and stuff like that, we've got multiple lines of utility lines, and it don't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I, just for information, if you're interested, my team actually, we've been kind of exploring what makes sense for service with our partners. How it works out, I would say right now, I can confidently say there's a positive appetite. What ends up happening, we will see, but I think being able to come to the table to talk about what makes sense. They're just this past week, I heard from my team on that, and they were very optimistic about it. Any other ideas on priorities over the next 5 years, or things that you would like for us to be mindful of?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Light and Power, even though you're doing a lot of things, I agree, I'm very happy with what Light and Power does. I think you need to get more actual, almost day-to-day communication with the public, because the trouble is we see so many things come up where people, organizations, counter things like that, that's the old thing about the truth, okay? When you repeat the falsehoods, that somehow becomes the truth. We should repeat the truth, and we know it. Probably everybody in this room here knows a lot more than a whole high percentage of the public here. So when you talk about, are we getting it, the horse, the cart ahead of the horse and things like that, well, that sounds like one of those. It's a play on that same thing that, the sun don't always shine and the wind don't always blow, so therefore, then you go on to that. And there are, in fact, we were listening to a different talk this morning with Peter Sinclair, and he brought up, or people that he had on there, about Michigan has one of the largest battery storage, in the world, actually. Okay, it's in Ludington. It's a water thing. So, and I keep looking at it like, everybody says we only have intermittent power, and you can't do the wind all the time or the solar all the time. But all these things that we're putting in, everybody who's put up windmills and everybody whose place has put up solar panels, when battery storage becomes cheaper or another form of storage, guess what? You can plug into that and go. So it'll already be there. You'll have the the land set up, the wiring, whatever else. So it'll be just and it's coming. So the idea of having it too soon, I think we're not soon enough, because when you put more of that in there, you'll get more. So again, I think, but Light and Power, for all you do, I have questions. We've been to a lot of it and follow it, as much as we can. But I will ask questions. How much of this new solar that went up there on M72 is Light and Power using, and do we have any more? We don't know the answers to that right away, and I'm willing to bet that people who follow up don't know. The general public doesn't know beyond us, So again, so I would say do more advertising of what we're doing. So, I don't know.
I think that's a good key piece too, and it's also an opportunity for education. We are moving into, or no, not moving into, we are in a customer-centric type of environment when it comes to utilities. I think maybe, maybe our grandparents may have had the utilities where you just, as long as you paid your bill and the lights turned on, that's all I really care about. Well, now customers and consumers are becoming more conscious. They care about where their investment is going. They want to know. And so our comfortability with let's just do our good job and keep the power on. We need to remind folks what we've been doing. Traverse City paired up and partnered and actually received an award this past fall from, I believe it was Great Lakes Institute. I can't remember exact name, and so I apologize. But it was due to the collaboration with Cherryland, and it was the first community solar project in the state of Michigan, and that was in 2013. Excellent reward, excellent opportunity, but I think at times we get so busy with, we did that project, we're done with it, we forgot to remind ourselves that we did do that. That is really good, and this is the impact of it, that it is moving forward. And so that is, I think, definitely an opportunity for us, and maybe even also seeing what we can do with maybe a corporate sustainability report. That's an idea. I feel like you may not have said those words, Dave, but that's what I heard. And that's an excellent opportunity just to remind, we already do an annual report. And a lot of this information, we're already doing it, but it's good to, I think, to remind our ratepayers, our owners, it's the value of public ownership, what they're invested in and kind of what the impact is. So I hear you, absolutely.
Building on David's comments, the Record Eagle has been full of climate change comments. They've been reposting things that Bridge has published. I think if you connected with the reporter there that's most interested in that, you'd get a lot of coverage over what TC Light and Power is trying to do.
And they've been great.
And the same thing with Northern Express. They've got some powerful writers there.
I've had a couple of interviews
IPR.
with both, but I do think we could probably reach out a little bit more, maybe send them information.
Feed them things and see what happens. Did you want to talk?
Yeah, I just thought I'd add a little bit. Yeah, in terms of priorities, I think one thing I would add is, or not really add, but reinforce is just that decarbonization, just how important that is, and like however much can be gained in the next 5 years, every bit counts, and to get some good momentum going is very good, very important. And then for considerations of being mindful of during planning, this again, I'm kind of echoing Dave and June here, but I recognize like there's only so much that TC Light Power can do, and when I guess as I'm imagining things, when you're in these meetings or whatever, you're kind of running into these limits, or there's only so much time or so much money for X, Y, or Z. To be able to be aware of what other organizations like NMEAC here, like the Record Eagle or like that I would mention, that can kind of help to like extend outreach or also help with that education work or whatever else there might be. Climate is everybody's responsibility, and I think there's a lot of people that are really willing to help and engage. So I find like in this time, networking and connecting and just being aware and having that sense of community can open up a lot of doors and really make a world of difference. So those are my thoughts.
I'm just confused about why Cherryland is so disjointed. And that's really not a question that you need to answer, or maybe it's not in your purview, but I'm thinking that I didn't realize Consumers is nearby on the peninsula, and TCL&P and Cherryland. To what extent can you work together to move, in a bigger way towards these goals?
Yeah, I can't really explain. One, I'm new to up here, so where I came from downstate, it was a little bit more cut off. Up here, there are 3 utilities, obviously, within the area. In terms of the why it was that way, I think I have an excellent team member who can tell you the history that goes back to the hydros and a decision to make one purchase here and one purchase there, and that's kind of how things started getting sprawled out. But the ability and the opportunity to see where it makes sense for either looking at where we need to I don't want to say consolidate or exchange territories is a discussion I think we just have to have. There are legal rights and there's regulations that talk about who has the right to serve, how all that works. It's kind of one of the reasons why we have our wonderful monopoly within the corporate city limits. And so anything we work out, we'll definitely have to make certain, we follow whatever legal parameters there are, but the gist that I have, or what I've gotten right now, is there's the interest in discussion. No one's willing to give up their legal rights, but I think we see that there's an opportunity maybe to connect and talk about what makes sense.
But all you have to do is go to Front and Garfield and look at how many transmission lines there are. It is ridiculous to duplicate this over and over. And it's been that way for 50, 60 years at least. And it's not getting any better.
How about any just general questions?
Hi, Brandie again. David again. Bill mentioned something about I think the other one, somebody else, different power companies. We have on the peninsula, not the Leelanau Peninsula, okay? Both Cherryland and Consumers service the peninsula, okay? This is how they do not work together. One side of the peninsula is Cherryland, the other side is Consumers. And now, if you go in any other place in this county, in most of the state, or wherever you have electrical things, one of the ways that they build in a redundancy is you have major power lines running on that side of the township or whatever else, and another one on this side, and they backfeed, okay, so that they're both tied up. So if one of them gets shut down, you can feed the other side of it. The peninsula, they cannot do that because they have two different voltages. Okay, so the systems will not work together, and they haven't taken care of it. In fact, they had a problem with that, I don't know, it was 11, 12 years ago. I think they bought a bunch of transformers out there that were all supposed to be put in, and they got them and they were all the wrong voltage. So it's the big ones, the big power stations. So anyway, that's the reality of what it is here. It's a terrible competition, and Leelanau County, the peninsula, does not have the backup that we have right here. Okay. In fact, if you look here, they've got the big companies. They put in special lines so that whatever it is, the bakery down here doesn't shut down. Okay. In fact, I was at one of the light and power meetings here 5 years ago where they were buying a special switch so they could switch from one to the other, and it cost like $250,000 just for the switch. They figure they'll never justify the cost, but that's so they have the redundancy and they don't have to shut down Sara Lee or something like that. So anyway,
Okay.
yeah. But,
Thank you. Hi, Brandie. I am wondering if you see a role for our youth and our school communities in this climate action plan strategic planning process that you're going through right now.
So in terms of our actual planning process of what we're working on right now, I think the best role is for groups that are like student constituent groups to be heard and continue to do what they do, at least during the planning process. The piece, though, that comes after the planning process, and I'm confident it's going to be in our recommendations, is working on energy literacy. How can we work on improving skill sets for jobs of the future? There are things called green jobs. And so there's an opportunity to get more involved with schools beyond just electric safety, but how can we also have an opportunity to influence curriculum so that as people are growing, they're in the tech industry, whether it's the ability to do installation and repair of heat pumps, so that we do enable electrification, how can we partner and kind of start influencing? And so, the school district, at least TCAPS, has a really great trades program right now. And they actually have a couple of, I would say, tracks that kind of touch on that. That is really where I see our youth being more involved. I think we need to kind of start feeding them and letting them know this is what we need to kind of sustain ourselves. Being able to be that solution provider, data analytics, looking at what's going on in the industry. And then also with TCL&P fiber, that's a revenue diversification opportunity, but it is truly our path forward to a decarbonized future. Because with that technology, all of the demand response, being able to communicate, have devices do what they need to do, we're investing in that. You do have telecommunication companies right now where their decarbonization strategy is to switch out copper for fiber because it is much more environmentally friendly, it's sustainable, it lasts longer. But fiber also adds grid resilience, modernization, data comes through that. And those are the things I think we need to be probably talking with our youth about and putting that idea in their head. It's not just a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer we want, people to do when they go. Perhaps it's more in the trades, and this is what that trade looks like and how we can start influencing it. So I would say, like right now in our planning process, I'd say do what they're doing. Stay alert, stay in tune, but just be mindful that we're probably going to be rolling out and be open as we kind of move forward, because this process and what we're doing is not going to end in June. It's not going to end in the fall when we finalize, hopefully, our strategic plan. Ideally, it should be something that is sustained and sustainable and it'll keep going on. So this is kind of my initial thoughts on that. Okay.
So I just have one, you were talking about being proactive instead of reactive, so I'm wondering, so do you have something like that going on right now where you see a business that is in a really good location for some solar panels where you're going to approach them rather than waiting for them to decide, well, I wonder if we should be getting into that? Do you do that now, or is that something in the future?
It's still reactive. So future, that would be future goal. But my team is already, our teams they're wanting to look at our distribution. So we'll have to do a study that looks at updating our distribution system. And that's kind of the first step of being able to do that. So right now, we are reactive. It's unfortunate.
Just waiting for people to come to you.
You kind of, and then you respond with whatever boilerplate net metering program we have, but there's an opportunity, there's low-hanging fruit where we can kind of improve those programs to figure out how to make them work, and so those are some of the things that we're looking at. But yeah, right now we're still reactive, but the goal is to be more proactive and be able to do more planning. Try to see how you can make that work.
Right, and that helps the situation where we feel like we're in a hurry to get this going and save the planet, so it kind of goes together. So,
Yeah.
Thanks.
You all have ideas.
Yes, we're wrapping up.
Okay. And then, so this,
Ideas run out.
well, if they come to you later, like I said, there's an opportunity to still provide some feedback, whether it's an email, whether it's on the web form, or opportunity for me to connect with you at any of the public events or engagements. One of the things we've been doing at the public open house as well, it may not be totally green, but we have been having these giant sticky notes where folks could start writing in kind of some ideas, and my team have been capturing that, so it doesn't go in the trash. But they've been taking down that feedback. We do plan on having a stakeholder engagement report that's kind of paired up or supplemented that climate action plan, where it kind of culminates everything we've kind of done to date, and the recommendations, so that you can see what we did consider. And even if there's something that we don't move on right away, it kind of offers a level of hope or transparency, as I would say, to we have identified it. It's something that we probably need to revisit, but as we're doing some planning, it might not necessarily be one of the highest priorities. So we do want to kind of share that too. So, thank you.
Yes, we do thank Brandie for sharing her time and all that's going on. And I guess it's up to us to be the cheerleaders now and to support Light and Power. And I would encourage each one of you to go and tell 2 or 3 other friends of yours to watch the recording, which will be on our website. And other people can get involved and can be also supportive, because it's going to take all of us. We know that. So thank you for coming, and stay around and visit a little bit if you'd like to.